I was born here, I went to school here, I grew up here and I live here. Greater Manchester is more than just a place on the map. It's my home and it's a place that I care very passionately about. And I'm not in this race just to make up the numbers. I'm here to try and win it because Greater Manchester deserves a mayor who has an ambition for our city that can have such a profoundly positive impact on what it means to be born, to grow up and to live and work here. We're a global city with global potential. We need an outward-looking Greater Manchester, confident on the international stage, attracting inward investment, creating high-value jobs, using Manchester Airport and our universities to help trade with the world and to see investment in our infrastructure. We need a city region that's easier to get around. It means a wealthier Greater Manchester, where the profitability and productivity of our businesses is a priority, and that ensuring the many people that get up every morning and do the right thing and support their families are able to get on.
I've worked in public services for most of my professional life, and this has included various public health roles across Greater Manchester and within the NHS. I've also represented my local area in Trafford for 16 years as an elected councillor and as a community activist. So through my personal experience of the NHS and as a councillor, I'm increasingly aware of the shortfalls and funding gaps within our service. I believe our place in the world and our continuing prosperity is best secured by being in Europe, at its heart and not pushed to the sidelines. However, I respect the results and believe we must fight to retain our place within the single market. And whatever deal is reached over the next few years, we should all have a say on that deal. This is why I'm currently against greenbelt developments when we have so many more spaces within our cities and town centres that should be developed first. We need to safeguard our green spaces across Greater Manchester for the future well-being of generations to come. So we're building a sprawling city of the 19th century when we're living in the 21st century. And that's why I also think we need fresh thinking to tackle climate change and air pollution to ensure we have a safe world for our children.
We meet in probably the most unprecedented and uncertain times in our political lives, in all of our lives. The world is changing out there, and we don't know what the future holds. But also here in Greater Manchester, we have an unprecedented opportunity before us that's also a challenge, because the spotlight is on Greater Manchester, and people are looking at us to see how we rise to the challenge of devolution. But also, I have had roles in government, a number of cabinet roles in the last government. And when I was in those positions, I used them for the benefit of Greater Manchester and the north of England, because that is what brought me into politics in the first place in the 1980s, the sense that we were treated as second class, that we didn't get a fair deal. But more than anything, I've got a passion for Greater Manchester, for the northwest of England. And I believe there is such a great opportunity before us now. We have so much to offer, and we do need to ensure that Greater Manchester remains a European city, open to the world. And we put forward a vision for what we can be in the future.
The Metrolink is a huge part of our public transport system, but actually everybody deserves a road network, a bus network, a train network, a tram network that is working streamlined and integrated with each other, because we need to have a city region that is easier to get around. And as Mayor, I'd make sure that we very quickly move to a place where we, I think, move us from a stop-to-stop system that we have on the Metrolink system to a more zonal system that we see in London, where we can have that ability to be able to have multiple trips, smart ticketing, the way to be able to use an Oyster card-style system across the city, because ultimately this is about helping people using our transport network to enable economic growth and access to jobs in Greater Manchester.
Let's think big and imaginatively what we could do with Metrolink. Why not have like a circular route all the way around Greater Manchester? So we need to introduce the smart ticketing system so you can pay all at once to go on the tram, the train and the bus. Why not have something like a 1-hour ticket so that allows you unlimited travel on bus, tram and train in Greater Manchester, all within a time zone?
For every £1 that the north of England receives in transport investment, London gets 6. And that gives us the public transport system that we've got today, that simply doesn't serve the public well enough. If London had our public transport system, there'd be riots on the streets. People would not put up with it. You know, it's a world away from what they have got, and we need to improve all modes of transport, Metrolink included, because no one mode will solve things. We've got to start with the buses. The Deregulation of buses in Greater Manchester was and has been a disaster. It's been a free-for-all. Bus usage in Greater Manchester has gone down all through the last 30 years, and it's at a lowest ever level right now because the cost has gone up and they've become poorer quality, confusing. I would endorse the ambitions in the plan, particularly around home building. So I don't back away from the numbers of homes that Greater Manchester wants to build and proposed in the spatial framework. There is a but, however, because I feel if you built according to the spatial framework, I don't believe you build a mix of housing to solve Greater Manchester's housing crisis. I think it would have led to an oversupply of larger homes and not enough homes that are affordable to rent or to buy for people to solve the housing crisis. And that is what we should be aiming to do here. We should have a 20-year vision to make sure everybody has got an affordable home to rent or to own. My second problem with it was that it too much put more cars onto the roads and wasn't integrated with our public transport system. I don't think it was ambitious enough when it came to industry. It was over-reliant on warehousing and distribution. And again, I think we can aim higher than that. I think we need a vision for industry here that is about 21st century industry, digital, that's about health and care, advanced manufacturing, renewable energy. I would like to have seen those kind of ambitions in the spatial framework. So yes, I would rewrite it if I was mayor. I would want to see a reduction in the green space taken. But I am not somebody who opposes development. I just want the right kind of development that makes Greater Manchester a great place to live.
If you've looked at our press release, we also oppose the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework. It was my colleagues in Stockport that decided that it wasn't a good idea because we think it should be rewritten because at the moment it's a top-down approach. It should be much more bottom-up. And we're not convinced that actually developing all that green belt is the way forward because there's other things that need to be done first. So we need to be discerning about what we call green belt, of course, but we need to unlock all the brownfield sites first. We want a 21st century building, so we need to make sure we build upwards in those spaces where you've got the infrastructure already, and we need to make the city a nice, pleasant place for everybody to live. So I think we need to really think carefully about how we manage the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework. My party has called for it to be scrapped and rethinked because it isn't delivering for the people of Greater Manchester.
The GMSF is not going to go away after the 4th of May. This is a plan that's going to be with us for the next 20 years. It needs to be flexible enough to respond to a changing economy, to be able to make sure that we can get the homes and jobs that we need across Greater Manchester. One of the ways that we don't do that is to look at what essentially is 2.5 years worth of work to do something that is so bold and ambitious, which is to spatially plan on a level they've never seen before in the UK, across boundaries, because we know that if we do that, we can have the right development, we can have transport infrastructure with it at the same time. But it's going to need tough decisions.
I will make the argument that the government must commit to west to east rail investment across the north of England, linking the great cities. It's got to be a higher priority for investment than Crossrail 2, because in my view, if they spend more money on London, we will wait forever for that rail investment and we will never get a northern powerhouse, because there cannot be a northern powerhouse without much better transport connectivity. Personally, I would build it all as one system, HS2 and HS3 Northern Powerhouse Rail together, give a real confidence boost to the north of England. If we get more flexibility over European state aid rules, I would make no bones about prioritising Greater Manchester companies for that investment, to build up those industries, but to say to them in return, we want them to bring forward the apprenticeships, we want them to provide decent working conditions, the living wage, an end to 0 hours contracts. I would like to see a new relationship with business across Greater Manchester, where we work together to build this city region, to make it the industrial capital of this country that it once was.
I've been thinking about this, and actually one proposal I've heard recently is we could actually just move the power more to the north of England. While Westminster's being redeveloped, why not just move the Westminster to Manchester? It would be ideal. We've got Media City here, and that's one idea that we need to think about. And that's something that I will be campaigning as well, to make sure we have those strong links. But it's also about making sure we actually get the proper investment into Greater Manchester. Mentioning transport as well. HS2, what we're seeing at the moment is we've got the first part of the development is going to be Birmingham to London. Why didn't we have the two things going on at the same time? Why don't we make sure that development of HS2 happens even more quickly so that the Birmingham to Manchester is actually happening at the same time, speeding up our place in the United Kingdom and our place in the world?
There's an intrinsic link between the statements that we've just heard around the spatial framework and then the answers that are being given now. Because you can't have one without the other. They both complement each other. They both say that we can be a global, ambitious, confident city that is attracting investment, attracting new jobs. Because that's one of the ways in which we overcome a north-south divide, is by saying that we're not inhibited by some of the things that actually hold London back. We have our own assets, our own strengths, and we need to be much more positive about using them to say that we're going to create an economy here in Greater Manchester that is much more sustainable, that is putting people into the jobs that we need people to have, that our transport investment.
I'd be a champion for things like mental health and our young people. I'd be a champion for health and social care because I've worked in the NHS and I can see what the impact is directly. I'd be a champion for somebody who was carers as well, because actually it's not just about the businesses and about, of course we want the investment to come to Greater Manchester, but what we need is somebody who will represent all people, not just business people, not just the high flyers, but to represent everybody in Greater Manchester.
I think that we need to not miss the opportunity of the mayoralty. This mayoralty is about getting things done. Making a difference for the people that live and work in Greater Manchester, not using it to shout from the sidelines. We know that we're building on a strong foundation here in Greater Manchester, that we need somebody who is going to be able to say that we can bring everybody with us, that we can take the tough decisions that are right for the long-term future of our city region. I know that's something that I can do, and it's a reason I'm so passionate about trying to get this role in the first place.
If I was a career politician, I would just stay in Westminster and stay where people perceive career politicians to live. The truth of the matter is, I came into politics to change things for Greater Manchester, for the northwest of England, and I've become disillusioned with the way our political system works. It's an overly centralised system. You know, I've done my best to argue against the London-centric nature of our country, and there's only so much you can achieve as one of 650 voices in the House of Commons when it has an inbuilt bias towards the area inside the M25. For the last 10 years, I've been at the centre of efforts to unite the Cabinet, as was when we were in government, and then the shadow Cabinet in opposition, so it would be a piece of cake, to be honest, after that. But I pay tribute to Sean, because Sean has very much embraced the spirit of partnership, and that's how Greater Manchester succeeds. It's why it's carried us to this moment where we are ahead of the rest, because of strong partnership. The problem with devolution so far is it has been too closed in small rooms where opinion formers and those in leadership positions have taken decisions, but it hasn't involved people outside. The challenge for devolution is not just to unite the leaders, but to make it feel owned by the people of Greater Manchester, to make them feel involved in where we're going and the vision that we're building. That is the challenge of political leadership that is before us. We've got to make sure that this is a collective endeavour in which everybody feels they've got a part. And that is why, as I said at the beginning, you need experienced and strong political leadership to carry this city region forward. And I think I've got what it takes to do just that.
You know, the GMSF is not proposing to build on every scrap of green that is in Greater Manchester. More than half of this city region is either open space or green belt. And we know that if we want to be able to plan for growth, that we do so in a way that has a very long-term view about some of these choices that we need to make. And the problem with saying that we'll rewrite it, or we'll try again, or we'll do something else, or we'll scrap it, is that as soon as you come back with something else, the same issues are going to arise.
The real problem with it at the moment is it isn't utilising the brownfield sites. And I think we've got a big challenge, whoever becomes mayor. If people aren't happy with the plan, they're not going to like it. And the whole position of being Greater Manchester Mayor is not going to work if local people aren't happy. And local people are not happy with the way this plan has been top-down imposed upon them, because actually they can see there are lots of brownfield sites. You only have to look around the area. We need to unlock those brownfield sites before we start going into the green belt.
There are no solutions that are coming forward. It's too easy to have that race to the bottom, to play politics with this. This is too important for us in Greater Manchester over the next 20 years to say that we're just going to use it as a political football between now and May, that we're going to magic up land that somehow we're supposedly hiding from people in Greater Manchester that we can use in future. And what we need to do is say that we need the right development in the right place so that we can get the infrastructure that's planned with it.
Going forward in the long term, my vision for Greater Manchester is as a place where people get on, where we have a place where people are not left behind, a beacon of social justice to the rest. But people begin to look here and say there is a better way of doing things than leaving things completely to the market.